With his back to the Lincoln Memorial, Harry S. Truman, the 33rd President of the United States, becomes the first president to ever address the NAACP.
The extension of civil rights today means not protection of the people against the government, but protection of the people by the government.
At the Democratic Convention in 1948, Truman goes further. Pressured by Northern black voters and civil rights activists, he endorses a strong civil rights platform, placing his own candidacy at risk.
There was this strong sentiment, these are states' rights, these are local matters. So far as Truman was concerned, that wasn't getting us anyplace. The federal government had to move.
30 rebellious Southerners storm out in protest.
Strom Thurmond, who was the leader of the segregationists, was approached by a reporter after he had led these 4 state delegations out, and he was asked, "How come you did this when President Truman is doing precisely the same thing that Franklin Delano Roosevelt did in terms of support of civil rights?" And Thurmond turned to the reporter and immediately responded, "Yes, but there's a difference. Truman really means it."
Outraged by Truman's action, Strom Thurmond, governor of South Carolina, challenges him for the presidency under the banner of the newly formed States' Rights Party.
The Southern revolt against President Truman reaches its climax at Birmingham under the States' Rights banner. More than 6,000 flocked to the Rump Convention to join in the protest against the President's civil rights program. 13 Southern states are represented in the uproarious session which precedes the nomination of Governors Thurmond of South Carolina and Fielding Wright of Mississippi as party standard bearers. Governor Thurmond attacks the civil rights plank.
It simply means that it's another effort on the part of the President to dominate the country by force and to put into effect these uncalled for and these damnable proposals he has recommended under the guise of so-called civil rights. And I'll tell you, the American people from one side or the other had better wake up and oppose such a program, and if they don't, the next thing will be a totalitarian state in these United States.
The battle lines were drawn. 10 days later, after being pressured by black labor leader A. Philip Randolph, Truman signs Executive Order 9981, desegregating the armed forces. It was a dream fulfilled for Randolph, who had been fighting to integrate the Army for over a decade. In 1941, Randolph had threatened to march on Washington if then-President Roosevelt did not desegregate the armed forces and change government hiring practices.
A. Philip Randolph, who was head of the Sleeping Car Porters Union, members throughout the country advised the president that if he didn't do it, he would bring over 10,000 of his members to Washington to march in protest.
This scared Washington. And Roosevelt realized he needed to do something to buy Randolph off. Roosevelt sent his wife, Eleanor, to meet with A. Philip Randolph to get the march called off.
As we were gearing up to fight a war against fascism, this would not be a good thing for the president to have happen.
With all due respect, Mr. President, I thought I might say on the part of the Negro people, they feel they are not wanted in the armed forces of this country. They are feeling that they are being shunted about. A. Philip Randolph.
Under pressure to act, President Roosevelt makes a concession.
At the 11th hour, the last minute, President Roosevelt issued an executive order, 8802, which established the Fair Employment Practices Committee, which basically said that there could not be any discrimination in hiring practices in the defense industry. Admitting his fear of Southern reprisal, Roosevelt had stopped short of meeting all of Randolph's demands. Truman did not succumb to that fear. In 1948, with a strong civil rights platform, Truman wins re-election. By electing Truman, voters seemed to affirm that supporting civil rights was no longer political suicide.
Harry Truman was elected without the votes of 4 southern states. And it became even more obvious at that point that the South was on the losing side in this battle to retain segregation.
Jackie Robinson opens the Dodgers' second with a home run into the left field seats. The Brooks, who clinched the pennant on the final day of the season, beating out the Braves.
Even as the South resists, racial barriers fall throughout the nation. In 1947, Jackie Robinson breaks through the color line in baseball.
I certainly agree that Clef's the hero of the team. I mean, he went 10-1.
Black actors break the stereotypical mold in which they have been traditionally cast and portrayed real human beings. And the United States Supreme Court declares segregation on interstate buses and trains unconstitutional.